The Power of Solitude, Part 1. Solitude is a powerful teacher, fostering inner strength, resilience, and self-determination. Embracing moments alone allows for personal growth, introspection, and the development of discipline. True transformation arises from trusting oneself, acting without external validation, and understanding that life does not require others' approval to move forward. Silence and solitude are often feared, yet they are essential for personal growth and inner strength. When we stop running from stillness, we begin to understand that silence is not emptiness, it is space for expansion. It allows us to meet the person we truly are beneath all the noise. Dependence on others can create invisible chains that hinder our progress. True growth is measured not by how well we fit into the world, but by how courageously we can stand apart from it. To be alone is not to be lonely, it is to stand firmly on the foundation of our own being. Solitude serves as a powerful teacher, encouraging us to confront ourselves without distraction. In moments of stillness, hidden abilities emerge, those quiet strengths that only appear when the world grows silent. The more time we spend with ourselves, the more we realize how capable we truly are. Inner strength and discipline are cultivated in these moments of solitude. It is in the silence that we make the hardest choices, to stay consistent, to keep moving, to keep believing even when no one is watching. Discipline becomes a sacred promise we make to ourselves, a quiet devotion that does not need to be seen to be real. Embracing solitude unlocks an infinite source of inner clarity. It allows us to consciously shape our lives and walk the path of transformation with purpose. In solitude, we learn to listen, not to the opinions of others, but to the whisper of our own truth. Independence is born through self-reliance, especially in difficult times. When the world feels heavy and uncertain, we discover that the only constant we can depend on is the strength within. Taking responsibility for our choices and emotions is the essence of maturity. It transforms every obstacle into an opportunity to grow wiser, calmer, and stronger. The Power of Solitude, Part 2. Transformation and growth rely solely on our willingness to move forward, even in solitude. Accepting this truth allows us to build discipline, patience, and resilience, qualities that no external encouragement can replace. Discipline is not about seeking validation from others. It is about remaining faithful to our purpose in silence. Each quiet effort, unseen by the world, shapes our inner character and strengthens our resolve. True strength is not born in comfort, but in adversity. Every challenge we face becomes a mirror, reflecting our ability to endure and rise again. Resilience is not merely the act of surviving, it is the art of transforming pain into wisdom. Through each trial, we discover a deeper, unshakable trust in ourselves. Every hardship offers a lesson. Solitude becomes the sacred ground where we learn to face our fears, confront our weaknesses, and embrace our imperfections. It is here, in the quiet, that self-acceptance takes root. We begin to understand that our worth does not depend on praise, attention, or comparison. It comes from our willingness to keep growing. True resilience is not just enduring, it is transforming. Every setback becomes a teacher. Every silence becomes a sanctuary. Through solitude, we reconnect with our authentic self, raw, imperfect, and beautifully human. Silence offers a sacred space for creativity and exploration, free from the noise of external expectations. It teaches us that making mistakes is not failure, it is evidence of courage. When we give ourselves permission to grow quietly, we step into a more authentic version of ourselves, one that moves with grace and confidence, even when no one is watching. Inner determination becomes the fire that keeps us moving. It is a quiet force, gentle, but unbreakable. The more we practice turning inward, the stronger that fire becomes. We stop seeking validation and begin creating meaning from within. Every day spent in solitude is a chance to deepen our roots. To practice patience. To become the kind of person who no longer fears silence but welcomes it as a friend. This is how transformation begins, not in noise or recognition, but in the quiet, steady rhythm of a soul learning to trust itself. To walk alone is not to be lost. It is to find the path that no one else can walk for us. Each step taken in silence strengthens our identity and independence. We learn that strength does not need witnesses, it only needs truth. Life moves forward regardless of our doubts or fears. Staying committed to our inner journey, especially when no one sees, is the greatest act of courage. For in the end, solitude is not isolation, it is preparation. It is the quiet art of building a soul that can stand firm, free, and whole. The Power of Solitude, Part 3. There comes a moment when solitude no longer feels heavy, when the silence that once echoed with loneliness begins to hum with peace. That moment marks the birth of true transformation, the quiet awakening of a self that no longer depends on the world to feel complete. Through solitude, we begin to see life with new eyes. The same world that once felt chaotic now unfolds with gentle clarity. Every sound, every breath, every thought becomes meaningful. The constant need for approval fades away, replaced by an unshakable calm that whispers, "I am enough." This is the essence of freedom, not the absence of responsibility, but the release from inner noise. Freedom is found not by escaping the world, but by facing it with a steady heart. When we embrace our inner world fully, we no longer chase validation, we create meaning. We stop asking life to make us happy and start shaping happiness from within. Solitude teaches us self-trust. It shows us that peace does not arrive when everything is perfect, it begins when we accept imperfection. In the quiet, we learn to forgive ourselves for all the versions we have been. We learn that we were never broken, only unfolding. True transformation is not loud or sudden. It happens softly, like dawn breaking over the horizon. One day, you simply realize that the things that used to scare you no longer hold power. That you can walk through uncertainty without losing yourself. That you no longer need to be seen to feel real. In solitude, we discover that love, real love, starts within. When you can sit in silence and still feel whole, that is love. When you can walk alone and still feel connected to everything around you, that is love. When you can fall and rise again, not because someone told you to, but because your soul whispered, "Try again," that is love. Every challenge that once broke you was never meant to destroy you. It was a lesson in strength, a mirror reflecting your capacity to rebuild. Solitude helps you see that pain is not punishment, it is preparation. It shapes you into someone capable of compassion, wisdom, and grace. With time, you stop fighting solitude and start dancing with it. You realize that solitude is not emptiness, it is sacred space. A space where you can breathe, dream, and rebuild yourself without noise or judgment. In that stillness, creativity blossoms. Vision clears. Purpose deepens. Each day becomes a quiet conversation with your soul. A dialogue between who you were and who you are becoming. The more you listen, the more you understand that you already hold everything you were searching for. Walking a different path requires courage. But courage does not always roar, sometimes it whispers, "Keep going." And even when no one applauds, even when the world stays silent, the universe sees. The universe moves quietly with those who trust their path. Solitude does not isolate you, it refines you. It burns away illusion and reveals essence. It strips you of noise so you can finally hear your truth. And one day, you'll look back and realize, every quiet night, every tear, every lonely morning was not wasted. They were all sacred steps leading you home, to yourself. The Power of Solitude, Part 4, The Path of Freedom. When you emerge from the depths of solitude, the world looks different. The noise that once overwhelmed you now feels distant, almost gentle. You move slower, breathe deeper, and see more clearly. You no longer chase life, you walk alongside it. Freedom begins here, not in escape, not in rebellion, but in peace. A peace that cannot be taken away because it does not depend on anything outside of you. You realize that true freedom has never been about doing whatever you want, it's about no longer needing the world's permission to be yourself. Solitude has taught you that silence is not emptiness but expansion. That every pause is sacred, every breath is a reminder of presence. You've learned that strength is not measured by how loud you speak, but by how calm you remain when everything shakes. There is a rare beauty in moving through life with quiet confidence. You no longer need to explain your choices, justify your dreams, or prove your worth. You've made peace with uncertainty, and in doing so, you've made peace with life itself. The storms still come, but you no longer fear them. You've learned to dance in the rain, to find rhythm in the chaos. What once felt like endings now reveal themselves as beginnings in disguise. The solitude that once felt heavy has become a sanctuary within you, a home you can always return to. You start to understand that your path is not meant to be compared, it is meant to be lived. The journey of self-trust is not a race, but a rhythm, one that flows differently for everyone. You are no longer chasing light, you have become it. Freedom is not loud, it is the soft assurance that you are exactly where you need to be. It is waking up without fear, speaking without masks, and loving without conditions. It is the quiet realization that even when the world goes silent, your soul still sings. Every step you take now carries a deeper grace. You move through life not to seek validation but to express gratitude. Gratitude for the nights that tested you, for the solitude that shaped you, and for the resilience that now lives in your bones. Because solitude was never meant to imprison you, it was meant to set you free. To remind you that you are not a fragment of what you've lost, but the wholeness of what you've become. And as you walk forward, lighter and truer than before, you carry with you a quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. You are free, not because the world finally understands you, but because you finally understand yourself. Sparkles, and in that stillness, you realize, freedom was never somewhere else. It was within you, waiting for the silence to show you the way. The Power of Solitude, Part 5, The Return to the World. After solitude has shaped you, after silence has softened and strengthened your soul, there comes a time to return, to rejoin the rhythm of life. But this time, you walk differently. Your steps are slower, your gaze deeper, your heart quieter. You no longer move through the world searching for something to complete you. You walk with the quiet knowing that you are already whole. The same streets, the same faces, the same sounds, they haven't changed. But you have. And because you have changed, everything around you begins to unfold differently. Now, you can sit in a crowded room and still feel peace. You can listen to noise and still hear silence within. You can face the chaos of the world and not be shaken, because stillness has rooted itself inside you. The solitude you once sought in the mountains, in the late night hours, or behind closed doors, it now lives in your breath, in your pauses, in your way of seeing. You carry it wherever you go. You start to understand that life is not about escaping people, but about returning to them with more compassion. Solitude taught you patience, and now you offer it freely. It taught you to listen deeply, and now your presence itself becomes a gift. You no longer need to fix, to rush, or to prove. You simply are. True transformation is visible not in isolation, but in integration. To live among others while staying anchored in peace, that is mastery. To be kind in a world that often forgets gentleness, that is power. To remain open when life closes its doors, that is freedom. You begin to love differently now. Not from need, but from abundance. You understand that love is not possession, but presence. It's in the simple act of being fully here, with yourself, with others, with life. Every conversation becomes deeper. Every small moment becomes sacred. You no longer rush to fill silence, you let it breathe. Because you know that silence, too, speaks. And when challenges return, as they always will, you don't collapse. You simply breathe. You remember the strength you found in solitude. You remember that peace was never somewhere outside, but always within. And with that knowing, you rise again, calm, steady, whole. This is the gift of solitude, not withdrawal from the world, but return with grace. You have learned to carry stillness into movement, clarity into noise, light into darkness. You have learned that solitude was never about escaping life, it was about learning how to live it fully. Now, as you walk among people again, you do not lose yourself. You shine quietly, you love deeply, you live intentionally, because you are no longer searching. You have become the peace you were seeking. And the world, sensing that stillness within you, softens too. Crescent moon in the end, solitude was never a destination. It was the bridge leading you home. Back to yourself, and back to the world, as one who is finally whole. The Power of Solitude, Part 6, The Quiet Revolution. Change does not always roar. Sometimes it moves in silence, like roots growing beneath the earth, unseen but unstoppable. This is the quiet revolution, the transformation that begins within one soul, and slowly ripples out into the world. You no longer speak loudly of strength, you are strength. You no longer talk about peace, you embody peace. You no longer chase purpose, you live it, softly, through every choice, every breath, every look that holds compassion instead of judgment. When you've walked through solitude and returned, something sacred happens. You begin to see that the way to change the world is not by force, but by presence. Not by convincing others to awaken, but by being awake yourself. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more calm hearts. It needs those who have sat in darkness long enough to understand light. It needs those who know that power is not control, but understanding. That leadership is not authority, but example. You start noticing the small things. The way sunlight falls on your hands, the rhythm of breath between words, the quiet courage it takes to be kind in a harsh moment. You realize that meaning isn't something you find, it's something you create, one mindful moment at a time. There is no need to announce your growth anymore. You no longer measure progress by applause. Instead, you feel it, in your patience, in your forgiveness, in the calm way you carry yourself when life tests you again. You've become both student and teacher, learning from every silence, and teaching through your way of being. You move through the world like still water, reflecting, healing, but never forcing. You understand now, true revolution does not happen in crowds. It begins quietly, within a single heart that has chosen peace over fear. Solitude has taught you to listen deeply, not just to your own voice, but to the voice of life itself. You begin to sense its rhythm, the silent wisdom flowing through everything. The tree, the sky, the breath, they all speak the same language now. And you, finally, can hear it. This quiet revolution is not about escaping the world, it's about loving it more completely. Because once you've faced your own shadows, you no longer need to fight others. You meet people where they are, without demand, without superiority, only understanding. That is the subtle power of those who have known solitude. They don't dominate spaces, they heal them. You move through life differently now. Less hurry, more awareness. Less control, more trust. Less proving, more being. And though the world may not notice your transformation, it will feel it, in the way you listen, in the way you stay calm when others break, in the way your silence gives others permission to breathe again. This is how light spreads, quietly, steadily, from one awakened soul to another. And maybe that's the true purpose of solitude all along, not just to free you, but to prepare you to become a quiet revolution in a noisy world. Sparkles, you do not need to shout to change the world. You only need to live in truth, and let your silence speak for you. The Power of Solitude, Part 7. The Light Within Others. When your own light becomes steady, you begin to notice the faint flickers in others. Some burn brightly, some tremble in the wind, some hide beneath layers of fear and doubt. And yet, you recognize them all. Because once, yours trembled too. You no longer rush to fix people. You've learned that every soul has its own rhythm of awakening. You cannot pull a flower into bloom, you can only tend the soil, offer sunlight, and trust the timing. So you become gentle, you listen more, speak less. You hold space instead of holding answers. Because you've discovered that real healing happens not through instruction, but through presence. Through the quiet assurance that someone believes in your light, even when you've forgotten it yourself. Your calm becomes a mirror for others. In your silence, they find permission to rest. In your steadiness, they remember their own strength. You do not preach peace, you radiate it. And without knowing how, your presence becomes a soft refuge for those still lost in their storm. The light you carry is not loud. It does not demand attention. It simply shines, unconcerned whether anyone notices, because its purpose is not to be admired, but to illuminate. Sometimes, your light awakens others gently, like dawn. Other times, it simply stands beside them through their night, saying nothing, just shining. And that alone can save someone. You begin to see that your journey through solitude was never only for you. It was preparing you to walk beside others without judgment, without fear. To remind them, through the quiet truth of your own being, that they too can find their way home. When someone is lost, you do not reach into their darkness to drag them out. You stay in your light, and you let it reach them instead. For the most powerful guidance is not control, it's clarity. You no longer need recognition for your goodness. The reward is in seeing someone else rise again, in watching another soul begin to remember who they are, in witnessing how light begets light. And one day, you'll look around and realize, the world is not as dark as it once seemed. Because every person you touched, even silently, now carries a spark of their own. This is how illumination spreads, not through noise or power, but through quiet hearts that have learned to keep their flames alive and share their warmth without expectation. You have become the lighthouse, not by seeking to guide, but by standing where you are, steady and shining. Full moon, and as others find their way by your light, you understand at last, your solitude was never isolation. It was preparation, so that when the time came, you could help others see their own light too. A letter to the one who feels alone. If you're reading this in the quiet hours of the night, when the world has fallen asleep and only your thoughts remain awake, know this: you are not truly alone. There was a time when I feared nights like these. When silence felt heavy, almost unbearable. I tried to fill it with noise, with people, with work, with anything that could distract me from myself. But one day, I stopped running. I sat down with my loneliness, looked it in the eye, and realized it wasn't my enemy. Loneliness doesn't come to destroy us. It comes to slow us down, to make us listen, to remind us of who we were before the world demanded we become someone else. In silence, you begin to hear your truest voice, the one that has been whispering beneath the noise all along. So if tonight you feel lost, don't fight it. Don't rush to escape the emptiness. Sit with it, breathe, let it soften you instead of breaking you. Because sometimes, when everything seems to fade, something new is quietly being born within you. And one day, you'll wake up, see the first light slipping through your window, and smile gently. Not because someone loves you, not because something great has happened, but simply because you made it through your own darkness. Crescent moon, when you learn to be alone and still feel at peace, that's when you are no longer lonely. The light within. There comes a moment, after the silence, after the tears, after the long nights of questioning, when something shifts inside you. It's not loud, it doesn't announce itself, but suddenly you begin to see a faint light within, steady, patient, and entirely your own. This is the light that was never gone. It was only hidden beneath the noise, the doubt, and the need for approval. It's the light that reminds you, you have always been enough. Even when you felt unseen, unheard, or unworthy, your existence itself was proof of meaning. Solitude teaches you that peace isn't something you find outside yourself. It's something you build, moment by moment, by choosing to stay, to trust, to listen. You begin to understand that life doesn't need to be perfect to be beautiful. You don't need to be understood by everyone to be complete. You simply need to be true. As you walk forward, you'll notice how the world feels different, not because it has changed, but because you have. The silence that once felt heavy now feels sacred. The solitude that once frightened you now feels like home. You no longer wait for someone to tell you who you are. You no longer chase validation or cling to noise. You walk, slowly, gently, and with intention, carrying your own light through the darkness. And perhaps that is what strength truly is, not the absence of fear, but the quiet courage to keep moving, to keep believing, to keep shining, even when no one is watching. Becoming whole again. There comes a time, after the long silence and endless reflection, when the heart quietly begins to open again. Not out of desperation, not from emptiness, but from a calm knowing that you are finally ready to live fully again. You start to feel life returning to you, in the warmth of sunlight on your skin, in the laughter of a stranger passing by, in the sound of wind brushing through the trees. Each simple thing reminds you, you are still here. You have faced the dark. You have met yourself in the stillness. And now, life invites you to return, not as who you were, but as who you have become. At first, the world might look the same streets, the same routines, but your eyes, they see differently now. Where you once sought meaning, you now create it. Where you once begged for belonging, you now bring presence. You no longer move from need, you move from purpose. The people around you might not understand this quiet shift. They might still chase noise, applause, or attention. But you have learned to dance in silence. You know that real joy is not loud, it hums softly, like a gentle song only your soul can hear. As you walk this renewed path, you begin to give differently too. Not to be loved, not to be seen, but because love has become your natural state of being. You give because you overflow. You care because compassion has replaced fear. You connect, not from emptiness, but from abundance. And through this, something miraculous happens. You no longer feel lonely, even when you are alone. You realize that solitude and connection can coexist, that peace and passion can live in the same heart. The journey of solitude was never meant to isolate you. It was meant to rebuild you. To strip away what was false, so that when you return to the world, you do so whole, with eyes that see beauty in the ordinary, with a heart that stays open even after being broken. You are not who you were when you started this path. You are quieter, but stronger. Softer, but wiser. Less afraid of endings, because you now understand, every ending is just a quiet beginning. So walk gently into the world again. Speak softly. Move with grace. Carry the stillness of your solitude within you, like a secret light. Let it remind you that peace is not a destination you reach, but a presence you bring wherever you go. Because you have become whole again, and in your wholeness, the world finds its reflection. Crescent moon, when you return to the world with peace in your heart, you don't just live, you become life itself. Reconnecting with the world. After walking through silence, you begin to return, slowly, gently, to the rhythm of the world. The streets feel different now. The same noise, the same faces, yet everything seems softer, as if the world itself has slowed down to breathe with you. You no longer rush to fill the empty spaces. You no longer crave the approval that once made you anxious. Instead, you listen, truly listen, to the pulse of life flowing quietly around you. You see people differently too. You no longer look for who can save you, because you understand now, we are all learning to save ourselves. Each of us is walking through a story, carrying invisible battles, silent dreams, and fragile hopes we dare not speak. So you begin to look at others with softer eyes. You no longer judge. You understand that kindness is not weakness, it's wisdom born from pain. And when you speak now, your words carry peace. You don't speak to be heard, you speak to connect. You don't love to be loved, you love because you are love. This is the quiet transformation that solitude has gifted you, a heart that no longer fears the world, but embraces it. You begin to notice how life meets you halfway. The right people appear, the right moments unfold, not by force, but by flow. You realize that when you live from stillness, the world gently rearranges itself around your calm. Sometimes you'll still feel the ache of loneliness, a sudden echo of old fears. But now, you know what to do. You breathe, you return to the silence within. You remember, peace has never left you, it only waits for your attention. And in that moment, you smile, because solitude is no longer something you endure, it has become your sanctuary. You can now move through crowds and still feel whole. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can let go, and still remain full. This is what it means to reconnect, not to depend, not to attach, but to share your wholeness with the world. Crescent moon, when your heart becomes still, the world no longer feels distant, it becomes an extension of your peace. Part 12. Living with intention. There comes a moment when you realize, life isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create, quietly, through the choices you make each day. After solitude, everything feels sharper, the air, the light, the small details of the ordinary. You begin to move slower, but every step you take has meaning now. You've stopped living on autopilot. You've stopped chasing noise. Instead, you choose, intentionally, softly, wisely. You wake in the morning and breathe with gratitude. You understand that peace isn't found in what you achieve, but in how you show up. It's not about how much you have, it's about how present you are in what's already here. You start to say, no, more often, not out of coldness, but because you finally understand what truly matters. And you say, yes, wholeheartedly, to the things that light up your spirit, the people who make you feel calm, the work that feels honest and alive. Living with intention is an art, the art of aligning your actions with your soul. It's not grand, not dramatic. It's quiet. It's in the way you make your tea, the way you greet the morning sun, the way you listen when someone speaks. You begin to realize that meaning doesn't come from big moments, it's woven into the small ones. The gentle rituals, the mindful pauses, the moments when you remember to simply be. Every breath becomes a prayer. Every silence becomes a reminder. You are no longer seeking purpose, you are living it. And even when life becomes uncertain, as it always will, you no longer panic. You know now that chaos does not destroy peace, it only reveals how deep your peace truly runs. You face the unknown not with fear, but with faith. Because solitude taught you one truth that nothing can erase. The only thing you can truly control is your inner world. So you move through your days like a river, steady, patient, intentional. Not rushing, not forcing, just flowing. And in that flow, you discover something profound. The universe is not against you. It was always guiding you here, to this exact stillness, to this quiet strength, to this calm awareness of who you are. Crescent Moon, to live with intention is to let your soul lead, even when the path is silent. Part 13. The Power of Stillness. There is a quiet force that lives within you, one that doesn't shout, doesn't rush, doesn't demand to be seen. It moves softly, like water, but it holds the power to reshape everything it touches. That force is stillness. For a long time, the world taught us to equate movement with progress, noise with success, and busyness with meaning. But the truth is, stillness is not the absence of motion, it is the presence of awareness. It's the moment when everything inside you aligns, your thoughts, your emotions, your breath, and the chaos of life begins to make sense again. In stillness, you begin to see clearly. Not because the world has changed, but because your vision has. You start to notice how much energy you once wasted, trying to prove, trying to fix, trying to chase. Now, you simply observe. You listen, you allow, and that's when the shift happens. Problems begin to untangle themselves. Answers you've been searching for quietly emerge from within. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking harder, it comes from thinking less, from creating space for truth to rise. Stillness is powerful because it reconnects you to life itself. When you are still, you become present enough to notice the sacred in the ordinary, the rhythm of your own breath, the warmth of sunlight through the window, the sound of your heartbeat reminding you, you are here. You realize that you don't need to control everything. You don't need to chase what's already meant for you. What is yours will always find its way, not through struggle, but through alignment. And that alignment happens only in stillness. When you cultivate stillness, you begin to influence the world around you without even trying. Your calm becomes contagious. Your silence becomes a mirror for others to find their own peace. You no longer need to convince anyone, your presence speaks for itself. This is true power, not loud, not dominant, but grounded, centered, unwavering. It's the kind of power that remains unshaken when storms come, because you have learned that peace is not found in the absence of chaos, but in the heart that can stay calm within it. So, take moments each day to pause, to return to your breath, to listen without words, to simply exist. For it is in stillness that your spirit gathers strength. It is in silence that your soul remembers its purpose. And it is through peace that your life begins to move, not faster, but deeper. Crescent Moon, stillness is not empty. It is full of everything you've been searching for. The gentle strength. There is a kind of strength that doesn't roar. It doesn't fight. It doesn't seek to dominate or to win. It moves quietly, softly, like water shaping stone, like light finding its way through the cracks. That strength is gentleness. The world often mistakes gentleness for weakness. It tells us to be loud to be heard, to be hard to survive, to be unyielding to be respected. But gentleness is not the absence of power, it is power under control. It is the kind of strength that remains steady, even when the world around you trembles. Gentleness is born from understanding, from having walked through pain, from having known fear, from having seen how fragile life truly is. It's what you discover when you've faced your own shadows and learned that kindness, even in darkness, is a choice of the brave. The gentle ones are not naive. They are the ones who have seen cruelty and chosen compassion anyway. They have been broken and decided to love again. They have fallen, and instead of closing, their hearts have opened wider. That is strength. Gentleness doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means knowing when to walk away without hatred. It means setting boundaries with love. It means holding space for others, while still holding yourself. A gentle soul can carry deep storms within, and yet still speak softly, still smile kindly, still move through life without bitterness. Because they have learned that peace is not something the world gives, it's something they create. And when you embody gentleness, you begin to notice how the world responds. People relax in your presence. Conversations become softer. Even silence feels safe. You stop trying to convince others of your worth, because your calm confidence already says everything. Gentleness transforms, not through force, but through example. It teaches others that power doesn't have to hurt, that strength doesn't have to shout, that love doesn't have to burn to be real. So, walk gently, but do not mistake your softness for fragility. The ocean is soft, and yet it carves mountains. The breeze is invisible, and yet it moves the trees. Your gentleness is your greatest weapon, your quiet revolution, your proof that strength can be kind. Crescent Moon, true strength is not in how hard you can be, but in how gently you can remain when life becomes hard. The quiet rebirth. There comes a point when the silence no longer feels heavy. It no longer suffocates or echoes with emptiness. It begins to breathe. It becomes the sound of your own heart finding rhythm again. You start waking up not because you must, but because you want to. You begin walking through life not with haste, but with peace, as if every step whispers, "You've made it through." You stop searching for people to complete you. You stop begging for love that drains you. You stop explaining your worth to those who never intended to understand it. Instead, you pour your energy into creating, into learning, into being. You look in the mirror and realize, the person standing there is not who you were. She's softer, yet stronger, quieter, yet fiercer, wounded, yet alive. And then you understand what solitude truly meant all along. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It wasn't loneliness, it was awakening. Because from the stillness, you were rebuilt, not as you were, but as you were meant to be. Conclusion: the art of standing alone. Solitude is not the absence of love, nor the rejection of connection. It is the sacred space where you remember who you are without noise, where you learn to love yourself without mirrors, and where you plant the roots that no storm can ever pull from the ground. If you ever find yourself lost in silence, stay there. Do not rush to fill it. Let it shape you, let it strip you, let it teach you what no crowd ever will. Because one day, you'll step back into the world, not needing applause, not craving validation, but radiating something unshakable: peace. And that's when you'll know, you didn't just survive solitude. You became it. You turned it into strength, into art, into freedom. And from that silence, you finally learned how to speak, not to the world, but to your soul. Sparkle's End of Solitude, a reflection on strength, silence, and self-rebirth.